Howdy there, folks. Welcome into today's video on the reaction channel. It's a buy one and get one free here today in this one, folks. 2 videos for me to react to. First one up here is this video, okay? We're going to stay on the AI theme and really speak about this in this video, okay? Wedbush's Dan Ives says, AI race isn't hype. There's real monetization here. I want to watch that video, react to that, give my opinions and perspectives on that one. Then we're going to watch this one. AI is a massive opportunity for cloud providers. This is important. Obviously, I've been buying Amazon stock very significantly the past 6 months. Maybe some of you guys have been buying them, or maybe you own Microsoft or Google. This matters in a pretty significant way. So I want to watch that one, react to that one, kind of give my opinions and perspectives. Now, AI is at an awkward moment right now, because the moment we're at in regards to artificial intelligence is everybody's trying to figure out, like, is this just a hype? Oh, everybody's getting excited, but there's really nothing here. Is there something massive here? Is this going to change the future for companies out there positively or negatively over the coming years? And it's at that awkward stage that a lot of people are trying to figure that out. And some are on the bandwagon of, like, this is just hype. There's nothing really here. Other people are like, this is a game changer. Other people are maybe, somewhere in between in regards to AI. So this is my AI watch list I just put together actually recently here of kind of some of the most direct AI plays I think out there in the market, okay? Adobe is certainly up there. They have a new product out there which can help with imaging and text in relation to AI. Tesla and Tesla, obviously, with their self-driving software. Microsoft owns a huge portion of ChatGPT, so they matter in a significant way. Google from a few different fronts on AI, search side, potential ChatGPT competitor, right? And on the cloud side as well. Okay, so they have several different fronts that artificial intelligence will either disrupt them or be very beneficial to them. Palantir, in my opinion, is one of the most perfect AI plays in the entire stock market. It's at the cross sections of data and artificial intelligence, helping governments make better decisions, militaries, helping companies make better decisions. It's in my opinion, it's probably the most direct AI play. Meta, huge AI play, specifically around recommendations of ads to you, recommendations of videos to show you, photos to show you, so it's as engaging of a platform as possible, right? NVIDIA and AMD, obviously on the chip side, NVIDIA is ahead of AMD, but AMD, don't be surprised if they catch up over this next 6 to 12 months. Amazon, in regards to cloud, obviously in a specific way, maybe Alexa and a few other things as well, right? So yeah, we're going to speak about this. We'll get into this. It's a juicy one. I appreciate y'all joining me. 27,000 plus subscribers. I think there are actually 27,100 plus subscribers on the channel. So thank you everybody to subscribe to the channel. And also make sure you get on my Patreon. I just made moves in there. Check out those moves I just made. You get to see the stocks I'm buying and selling in there. Plus you get to be part of our Discord chat for 19 bucks. Like, it's a no-brainer to get in there. So make sure you get in there. Price will be going up shortly for anybody that's not already in that tier, so do keep that in mind. So if this is something you're interested in, make sure you get in there ASAP. That will be pinned comment down there. Let's get into this.
AI has driven a sharp rally in big tech, but is the mega cap momentum and investor sentiment getting a little ahead of itself at this point? Let's ask our next guest, star Wedbush analyst Dan Ives. He is here at Post 9. It's good to see you again.
Great to be
here. As
I
mentioned in the tease, you're just back from 2 weeks of stops in Asia, checking on everything that's going on in tech right now. What did you learn? What was the biggest takeaway you got?
I think from an investor perspective, I think the stark contrast to what I've seen the last few years, appetite for U.S. tech, how do you play the winners? I think you actually see more and more moving from China tech to U.S. tech. And from a supply chain perspective, stabilization. I think that's the biggest thing, specifically when it comes to Apple and semis. I walk away from that trip a lot even more bullish on tech in terms of what we see from a demand perspective.
Do you have a hard time, even as bullish as you are, justifying some of the moves in the stocks that we've seen? And if not, why not?
Look, I get that many people think, could this be a hype theme, crypto, metaverse, now AI? I mean, to me, Scott, I think in 22 years covering tech, it's probably the most transformational tech theme that I've seen. So in terms of it as an opportunity, I'm not saying in the next year that necessarily the monetization is going to be there to justify these moves. But
okay, first off, I don't want to just gloss over the point he just made, because this matters in such a significant way. And it's what I've continuously seen. People get way too excited about a new emerging technology or emerging something. And then there's kind of like this period where everybody gives up on it, and they're like, oh, that's not going to be the big thing because it doesn't hit right away. And so you would understand, like, these massive technologies, it takes a long time for them to play out. It's not like they just tomorrow all of a sudden everybody in the world's using this and doing it this way and things like that. This is a process. And you know, the tech bubble was the greatest example of that, right? Late 90s, everybody was getting really excited about the internet and the changes that were going to happen there, right? And maybe got too excited, valuations went too high, and then all of a sudden everybody gave up on it. Meanwhile, you had massive companies that were growing exponentially their business models, and a lot of folks just weren't looking at those or taking those companies serious, because it was like, well, remember when it used to be valued here, now it's down here, and it's like, it's coming back. You know, Amazon, I think, is a perfect example of that, of a stock that fell 90% plus in the tech bubble. A lot of people gave up on it, and meanwhile, Amazon just kept growing their business year after year after year after year, and over time, they got the respect of everybody. But you've got to give these technologies time, man. Time for it to play out. Time for the story. You can't just, you know, think it's all going to happen in a day and then say, oh, because it didn't happen today, it's all done. It's, you know, man, that's market psychology, though. They get too excited and they get way too depressed on all this stuff.
Look at Microsoft in terms of what's happening in Redmond. You look in NVIDIA, Google, and others. I mean, we believe this is, based on our estimates, an $800 billion market over the next decade.
How do you get that number? I hear people talking about every time we try, we're in a moment in time where we try and justify.
That's a great question. Great job, Scott. Great question there. That's the type of questions we need to ask, you know, when somebody, because they do throw these numbers out a lot. Oh, it's going to be a $1 trillion, blah, blah, blah. You know, I like that.
A stock move or a group of stocks and their move, we use things like total addressable market,
Sure.
and we come up with whatever number sounds amazing to us to try and justify that. Where's that number come from?
Yeah, to me, and I've talked to you about it before, from what we're hearing from the field in terms of cloud partners, from Microsoft across the board, for every $100 of cloud spend, $35 to $40 of incremental could be AI. And I think that's when you start to sort of trajectory that out, that's why the hype's there, because that's when Nadella, Jassy, what Google, what everyone's going after in terms of that opportunity. That's why I believe this is not hype. This is a real monetization opportunity.
Yeah, if that's accurate, that's a game changer. And when you listen to Andy Jassy on, you know, latest Amazon conference call, what is that man saying? Okay, I'll tell you. Andy Jassy is the CEO of Amazon now. He took over for Jeff Bezos a few years ago. What's that man saying? He's saying that this is still early days in AWS. Early days, right? For a man like that to say that, he's got to believe there's obviously exponential growth for Amazon Web Services over this next, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so, when we talk about, for every $100 spend, there's another $35, $40 of incremental spend on top of that. These are game changers for business models, folks. And especially when you're still early days and you're talking about still so much has to move to the cloud. Like there's still so much to move to the cloud over this next decade. It's ridiculous. And that's obviously the most bullish for Amazon specifically. It's also bullish certainly for Microsoft as well, and a little bit Google, but let's be honest, like Amazon and Microsoft are the biggest beneficiaries, and Amazon's the biggest.
It's a Game of Thrones going on. I don't just view one winner, but that's why I think this is different than maybe other themes we've seen.
Well, I mean, it's certainly an arms race, right? An arms race means that you are going to spend a lot in the beginning to try and load up your arsenal, right, to be able to rule whatever world you want to rule. But the payoff, that's unknown in terms of the time frame. When's the ROI on all the stuff that we're seeing, return on investment that we're seeing now that's going towards AI?
I think
it's a case-by-case basis, and I'll be interested to hear what he has to say. It's a case-by-case basis. In terms of a company like Palantir, for instance, right, Palantir is going to start to see a direct payoff from AI like over the next several quarters. I mean, they don't have to wait 5-10 years to start to see a major payoff in regards to that. They're going to start seeing a payoff very shortly here, right? And so it's really a case-by-case basis. Meta is going to already be seeing a major payoff in terms of their AI work, right? NVIDIA is going to be seeing some, certainly, because the chips they're selling are between, from what I've seen, AI chips are between $10,000 and $30,000. So they're going to start seeing some direct benefits in a major way over this next several quarters. But in regards to NVIDIA, it's still going to be a very small component of their business. So it's a case-by-case basis. Other companies like a Tesla, Adobe, those could be many years out of really all the work they've been putting in to really realize it in terms of big numbers.
This is a big theme across Asia that investors are wondering, when's the monetization? And I believe the monetization, especially when it comes to Microsoft and cloud, I think we actually start to get there by the end of this year. I mean, I believe monetization in AI, specifically on cloud, is going to be a lot sooner than expected, which is why with a lot of these names that continue to move higher, I get the skeptics. But what I believe is that it's this fourth industrial revolution that's playing out, even though it's a murky macro and obviously, a lot of jump balls going on from a Fed perspective. I think this is...
You get game-changing technologies in these sorts of time periods, though. Let's not forget when iPhone came out. The most game-changing technology we've had in certainly modern times, right? The smartphone, tablets, that whole wave changed everything forever, right? Mobile devices, it changed everything forever, right? All of a sudden, everybody's got a supercomputer in their pocket nowadays. Like, holy smokers, that's no dang jokers, right? Who could have imagined 20 years ago that everybody would have a supercomputer in their pocket, right? That's what we have nowadays. And don't forget when that product launched. When did Steve Jobs show off the first iPhone? 2007, right before the great financial crisis, okay? And that product launched into the great financial crisis of 08 and 09 as they started to scale that product, right? And it just got more popular and more people started getting mobile devices, and then the iPad came out, and obviously all the other companies came out with their own tablets and their own smartphones and things like that. And obviously that was a game changer forever. It was a game changer obviously for Apple, but a game changer for so many other companies that benefited from that. Meta benefited from that in a huge way. Google benefited from that wave in a huge way. I mean, you could go down the list. It's amazing what that did. Amazon certainly benefited from that. The fact that you can now order anything from Amazon just on the app in a matter of seconds. Everybody benefited from that in a huge way. And it is a game changer for everybody. And AI is certainly one of those sorts of game changers. But I think AI is going to be more of a game changer on the cost front, to be quite frank, for these companies more than on the revenue front. Revenue front is definitely going to help, and especially a company like Meta, but I think it's going to help bring down costs in a major way and help profitability.
I really view that it's sort of a golden age for AI, and that's why everyone's trying to figure out, okay, if it's not just Microsoft and NVIDIA, has Google benefit? Salesforce, does AMD benefit, and others? And I think winners, and there's going to be losers too. That's what everyone's trying to figure out in terms of this AI theme.
I know, but I remember, way back when, watching documentaries and television news programs called the new gold rush. Same kind of stuff you're talking about relative to the internet is how people are referring to AI now. I get it. I think everybody kind of gets it. But does that necessarily justify these near-term moves and some of the valuations that we now have in some of these stocks?
I think for some, it does. I think for Microsoft's a good example where if they could really monetize AI relative to cloud, this is a stock that could ultimately have a 4 in front of it in terms of as they ultimately sum of the parts this and monetize. Others, they obviously have to prove it. But I think that's why right now I don't believe it's hype, because I do believe the monetization theme is probably as real as anything I've seen since the late 90s.
All right. Dan Ives, thank you.
Thanks for being
here. That's the Wedbush analyst Dan Ives joining us here post-9.
Did you say thanks for being here? Because that's kind of funny if he actually said that. Oh, gosh. Man. Next video up here. AI is a massive opportunity for cloud providers. Ooh, Oppenheimer. So from 3 hours ago, looking forward to get into this one.
Has been a big catalyst for the big tech names recently.
By the way, and also, I'd love to hear your guys' perspective. Do you think AI is going to be a game changer for a lot of companies? Do you think it's going to be not a game changer? What companies do you think are going to benefit the most from AI? I'd love to read through the comments and see what you guys have to say in your input on the subject as well. I'd love to see that.
Microsoft up 24% since it announced new versions of Bing and Edge powered by ChatGPT. Amazon is up 20% since announcing its Bedrock program, and Google has climbed more than 16% in the days following its I.O. event. But our next guest says it's the cloud names that are going to come out on top in the AI arms race. He's got a few key companies he is watching. With us now is Tim Horan, cloud and communications analyst at Oppenheimer. Tim, I'm a little surprised by this in a way, because these hyperscaler cloud names have such high valuations. One might argue AI's success is already baked in. So why them and not application players to win in AI?
Great question. Well, first, we don't really know who the application winners are going to be. We think most SaaS or most software will be embedded with intelligence at this point, but the business models are not really clear. But we do know that the ARM suppliers are usually winners in these processes. That was kind of the case back in the internet 20 years ago. And has.
Ooh, that's an interesting perspective, right? I like that. So the way he's kind of looking at AI is he's like, I don't want to figure out who's going to be the most direct beneficiaries. I do know, don't matter what, if AI is a huge success, cloud's going to benefit big time, right? Which is obviously companies like Amazon and Microsoft specifically, right? And so rather than try to figure out which applications are the most popular, right? Which softwares are the most popular, let me try to figure out this, right? And so that's an interesting perspective to play out there. So rather than trying to find a Palantir, let me just find an Amazon, right? A more easy play in regards to that, right? I think it's an interesting perspective, right? You certainly are going to take less risk with a strategy like that, but you're also not going to get as much gain. For somebody like myself, I own Amazon and I own Palantir, so I'm playing the direct play, and I'm also playing the kind of indirect play, the picks and shovels, I guess you can say, of Amazon, how they could benefit. And so, that's something to keep in mind. You can do multiple strategies, folks. GVD, remember that? Growth value dividends, you can make several different strategies work at a time.
Over that time period. And the cloud providers in general, if you have the best infrastructure, people are going to generally ride on top of that infrastructure. And the big three hyperscalers at this point really have the scale to train these AI models and to host these applications.
What about some of the kind of semi-infrastructure, maybe kind of DevOps type players like your ServiceNows, your MongoDBs, even your Snowflakes that are dealing in data and trying to create a platform effect for themselves, even though they're not hyperscalers? Are those too risky?
I mean, it's all going to depend on execution at this point, and these companies are a layer above the cloud, and that's going to be needed. We're going to basically need to.
As a Palantir shareholder and somebody that looks at this space, it's just so frustrating to not hear them be brought up. I noticed they didn't bring it up in the last segment, not bringing them up. They named several companies right now, and I'm just like, they just totally missed, Palantir, and I'm like, come on, guys, like this is like the most direct play. Like you're just gonna. Come on, man.
Label the data. You're going to need to curate the data. There's a whole host of suppliers and a whole new food chain that's going to be required out there. But there's massive opportunity for most companies that have been involved in the cloud for a long period of time. And the cloud may evolve from a technology perspective and probably will to a much more decentralized look and edge-based look perspective.
Somebody was telling me about DigitalOcean recently. I think it was somebody in the private stock group. Yeah. Somebody was telling me about that. They were DMing me about DigitalOcean and trying to get me excited about that stock. So if you're watching this video, interesting. But that's intriguing that he's saying DigitalOcean is the most at risk.
Probably will to a much more decentralized look and edge-based look over time. But right now, we think we're going to see an acceleration in cloud growth in 24, 25, almost entirely driven by AI at this point. And that whole food chain of suppliers should benefit.
Now, you've pointed out DigitalOcean as being at risk, and I wonder if you mean that longer term or if you just mean that it's range bound for a while, because this is a company that focuses on cloud type services for smaller businesses. They're being run by a former CFO who's really trying to keep it as efficient as possible. Are you saying that smaller companies that cater to small business are going to get kind of blown out in the AI-driven era, or just that it's going to take them longer to establish velocity?
Great question. They don't really have much, DigitalOcean in particular, does not have a lot of cloud AI-based capabilities at this point. They're still studying it, so they're likely going to have to invest in it. We think most new startups are going to be AI-focused over the next few years. Probably 80 to 90% will have some AI capability with them, and DigitalOcean really is focused on startups. But for DigitalOcean in the short term, and for a few of our other emerging cloud names, they are much more highly correlated with economic growth, and the economy is clearly, slowing here still a little bit more. They've been, guiding down a little bit. They've not seen much in the way of organic growth the last few quarters, and we think that will continue.
Well, what ends up happening to, say, not only DigitalOcean, but say a GoDaddy that even will sell through, say Microsoft 365, right? Does that type of relationship where they're a reseller to small and medium business, mostly small business, change in the AI era, or do they end up becoming a conduit through which some of these hyperscalers reach the smaller businesses that aren't necessarily going to be the focus of their larger sales forces?
It's a great question. If you look at a lot of I'll use these business models at a high level, SaaS-based business models, they only really paid about 10% of revenues to the cloud providers historically. Going forward, it's going to be more like 20%. The cloud provider is going to be able to extract a much higher of a tax at this point, and it is much more expensive. It remains to be seen, though, if these companies can pass that through or not.
All right. Tim Horan from Oppenheimer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, interesting. You know, like I said, these guys got to start mentioning Palantir. Like, you can't have this conversation, I think, and not bring up Palantir. So that's my opinion. Thanks for being subscribed, folks. Make sure you get in my Patreon. That's pinned comment down there. Much love and have a great day.